So I have my longer piece of wire, half round, that's going to connect these guys together. So if you have the green tape wrapped around the outside of your stone, hold it in place, it'll less likely fall out. And line up your wires so the front two touch and the back two touch. And that might mean that you need to manipulate your wires a bit to get them to line up with one another, and that's okay. Just take that time to get them lined up with one another as close as possible. Sometimes half of the wrap that, or the stone setting, just needs to be pushed over a little bit to line up with the other side, and then that was the case with mine, and now they're really right next to each other, really close. Okay, now make a hook with your half round wire like this, at least 2 inches long, because you're going to end up using this piece to finish off the bail. Put this onto the square wire. Wrap downwards towards the stone, so your long piece is facing towards the stone and the short piece is pointing upwards. So you should finish with 3 wraps. Have a gap between the tip where the stone starts and where your last half round wire finished. Have that to be the same length as the 3 wraps. So this gap right here is the same length as these wraps. Have both of your half round wires facing the back of the stone. All right. So this is what it should look like, whether you're using green tape or not. Something like that. So now hold on to both of your, or all of your wraps, all those 3 wraps, and make sure that your pliers line up with it. So if you're using chain nose, they need to be on a bit of an angle. Take all of your wraps, or sorry, your square wires over to their home side, except for the front 2. So you'll have 4 wires to the left, 4 wires to the right, with the front 2 left and right facing straight up still. So it'll look like this, kind of like a little critter. All right, so now I'm going to put my stone in, and I'm going to get it so that it's positioned without moving. So this is the back of the stone. I always suggest to start your pinching on the back of the stone. When you're working with pliers, I always suggest to have one side of the pliers as an anchor and the other side is what's actually doing the moving motion. So when you grab like this and you're pulling, you don't have as much control. Whereas if you have an edge to work with, whether that being your finger or the stone, depending on situation, use one side of the pliers to do the work. Now, you might end up pinching a little bit with the anchor side, but most of the work is happening with that jaw that's free. So that's how you can get really close pinches without destroying your wire. So right here, I'll show you. I have my thumb here that's holding this. I'm going to try positioning this a little bit differently. Maybe this will hold in place. Ooh, tricky. Okay. This way you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to take one side of the pliers on my thumb, and the other one is going to grab a hold of the outer square piece. Sometimes you need to use your finger or a watch tool to pull that wire out because your wraps are so tight. And this is a good thing. It just can be a little bit frustrating when you're trying to do your finishing details, but your stone will hold a lot better. So you can see I'm pinching with one side to get it out. Now that's already started to curve. Now in order to get that to sit on top of the stone as well, this is when I use both of the sides of the pliers. Pull it up towards the half round piece. And now I use the half round piece very gently as an anchor and push inwards. See that? Now I have this wave on the back of the stone. Just gently position it so it doesn't have any kinks in it or anything, and it flows nicely along the back of the stone. So that's the back. That's going to be the major support. Now you can also use another wire and chase it so that it sits next to it. Pull it out and anchor one side. Push inwards with the other. Like that. Looks pretty cool. And on the front, I'm going to try to not do as much. I'd like it to be more subtle and let the wire do most of the work by that curve that we created by starting to manipulate the wire around the stone before doing the next wrap. That will help to naturally curve and take on the shape of the stone. You can see it's on top of the stone slightly. So I'm going to pick the side that doesn't have as much going on it. So this side over here is going to be where I lift the wire up because I don't want to cover this side too much. So whatever side doesn't have as much detail is where I usually take the wire up and pull it up. So my thumb is my anchor again, and I'm just gently, little motions at a time, pulling that wire up, and then bringing it down on the other side. Try again. And then I'm going to chase it with the next piece of wire. Like so. Just like that. It's just starting to form the shape of the stone a little bit more. Now sometimes this can happen is your wire can bend down a little bit too much. Now if that happens, you gotta have to kind of roll with what happens. So at this point, I'm probably gonna have to lift it up so that I have a lift on each side of the stone, and then it kind of molds a little bit closer to the stone. You can see there's a bit of a gap there. We don't want that. So I'm gonna bring this side up as well. Now there may be some wires along the edge of the stone that aren't quite touching the stone. That isn't the case here, but it's quite common. I recommend grabbing a hold of the wire like so. So your pinching's on a bit of an angle, and make a Z shape. So you just turn it one way or the other, holding onto this stone quite tight, and that'll hold that stone really well for you. And you can even do that with a few of them. I don't think I have a few of them to do that with, but it looks kind of cool if you have one that's there and then the next piece of wire, bend it right next to it, and it kind of creates a zigzag pattern along the side of the rock. Now back to the bale. Now that the stone is holding. These guys right here, you can use a pen lid or a pen or chopstick or anything. I use my bale making pliers. I bring the wire slightly towards me, bend it over the top away, and land it in between those two pieces of half round wire. Like this. And then you continue your wrapping downwards towards the stone with those bale pieces incorporated. So you can go around until you can't go anymore. So until you get to the tip there. And then you flip up your back wires that are the bottom of your bale. You don't need as long of a piece, so I'm going to cut it down. And you're going to wrap that up, tuck it in on the inside. So you're wrapping around both of the pieces of bale wire with the half round only. Like this, wrapping downwards. I'm going to cut with the flat part facing in and finish it on the inside. Like that. And then this guy, which is the shorter one, it's going to go up and through the bale. Pull it through with the pliers if possible, trying to be gentle where possible. This is a tricky part. I'm holding one side of the half round with the pliers, and the other one is wrapping it around so I can get it nice and tight. Cut it off, tuck it in on the inside of the bale. And my bale pieces are a little bit crooked, so I just take my pliers and reposition them. You can either have them apart from one another or right next to each other. And this is what the back looks like. See, there's a little bit of a gap there. You can pinch with your pliers to bring them closer together, not a big deal. Now, these wires need to find a home. Same with all of your fun loose ends that you can be creative with. So these guys need to be cut off slightly longer than where you're going to hook it underneath. When you hook it underneath, you need enough room to think about when you're making a hook that this wire is quite thick. So you just have to kind of eyeball it, and it's better to have too much than too little. So I'm going to cut it on a bit of an angle because the wire that it's going underneath is on a bit of an angle. So I'm going to cut it like that.